Hey, good to be with you. Let's have some fun. Welcome into On the Clock, our Eagles' first round mock draft. So this is just the first 31 picks of the draft. Day one, Thursday, April 27th. It will be a good time. Let's introduce our guys here. I'm Danny Pommells, of course, and we got first up the Michael Jordan of the mock draft, Mr. Dave Zangaro, sitting in with us. Barrett Brooks, the Super Bowl champion. Ray Didinger, the Hall of Famer, and the omniscient Eagles insider, Mr. Reuben Frank. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. And from what I understand, there was a little jockeying for position in some areas because someone picked a guy that another person had their eye on. So we will get to that, and hope everyone's feeling well.
Definitely. I mean, I was getting harassed by Dave.
Oh, he's just gonna put it out there.
Yeah,
okay, I was gonna be
my
a little
picks,
discreet, but
I got there before he did, but hey, it is what it is.
All right, Reuben Frank, you are on the clock, sir, with the first pick. You are representing the Panthers and their kind of new look organization.
Yeah, and it's going to be a new look organization with Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud running the show. It's funny. The highest an Ohio State quarterback has ever been drafted was Art Schlichter. Hopefully this goes a little bit better for the Panthers than that went for poor Art. But they've got to get that quarterback situation settled. And I don't think C.J. Stroud is one of these guys who's going to come in day one, be a world beater. But I think he's got tremendous upside. It might take him a couple years. He's so accurate, big time passer. Going from Ohio State to the NFL is a big jump, but he'll make it. And I think out of those four quarterbacks that you're going to see go in the first round, maybe five, probably four. I think he's the elite one of the group.
All right, there it was from Reuben Frank. Barrett, we are coming your way with the Texans' second pick, and Rube mentioned quarterbacks going in the first round. Are you choosing a quarterback here for Houston?
Oh, absolutely. You look at the Texans, with the new head coach, DeMeco Ryans there. He wants to go in and have his guy implemented into his system, and I think he's going to go quarterback with Bryce Young, 5'10", 204 pounds, out of Alabama, already a rich tradition of winning, and it helps, he's from Alabama also. But also, when you look at it, Davis Mills just hasn't done anything for the organization the past 2 years. So they need a quarterback to get him going that direction. When you talk about him, he had a great pro day, even though he didn't work out at the combine. But what he does have is that leadership role. I mean, he's always been one of the top quarterbacks in the league, and he has great pocket presence, and he has a strong arm. He's a great competitor. So this will be their first real big decision as an organization with DeMeco Ryans at the helm going into the draft and picking up Bryce Young from Alabama.
Yeah, he has ties to the Philly area, of course. Too small though, B? Is he too small?
5'10" is, I think, a bit too small. But hey, if you're a winner, you're a winner. It seems like guys like Tua, and even he's even smaller than you would say Drew Brees. But I mean, he has that winning ability. So he has that pedigree. So I mean, they're gonna roll with the second best available quarterback option on the list.
Ray, what are you thinking for the Cardinals at the third pick? Two quarterbacks off the board. Where are you going here?
Yeah, well, Jonathan Gannon taking over as the head coach, and we know he's a guy that thinks on the defensive side of the ball, and he's got a shot now at the best defensive player in this draft, in my opinion, and that's Will Anderson from Alabama. He's got almost perfect size to be an edge player, just a shade under 6'4", 255 pounds. Runs an easy 4.6 40, and two-time Defensive Player of the Year in the Southeast Conference, and we all know the quality of football they play down there. 27.5 sacks last two seasons. Healthy, right at the top of his game. I got to meet him this year at the Maxwell Club dinner. He won the Bednarik Award as top defensive player in the country, and just impressive in every way. So I think this is an easy call for Jonathan Gannon. I think he's going Will Anderson.
Ray always using all of his resources. He got to meet the man face to face. So, of course, he's gaining what he can, gleaning what he can from that interaction. Mr. Dave Zangaro, the Colts on the clock, and they have a new head coach. And what would he also like to bring in his own quarterback and usher things in that way?
Yeah, they need a quarterback in Indianapolis. They've tried all these stopgaps from Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. They need a quarterback, and I think it's going to be Anthony Richardson from Florida. Untapped potential here. Huge guy, 6'4", almost 250 pounds. He's really big, strong arm, has the running ability. And this is kind of where I think Steichen's time in Philadelphia lends itself to changing the way he might have viewed quarterbacks in his past. He had Phillip Rivers and Justin Herbert. Richardson has some of that dual threat ability, so I think that plays a role. He saw that with Jalen Hurts, but also we saw, I think the most important thing for Jalen Hurts' growth and development was his ability to improve as a pocket passer, and that's something they're going to need to do with Anthony Richardson. So maybe Steichen has seen what it takes to get that out of him, and I think in terms of ceiling, Richardson's is really high if they can get the most out of him. I think that is a really fun pick for Steichen and the Colts.
How about it? A new regime there in Indianapolis. And you mentioned the name Jalen, and we're going to the Seahawks next, Rube. Is this where Jalen Carter comes off the board?
Yeah, and you have some really promising quarterbacks, but I think there's a fair chance Jalen Carter is the best player in this draft. There's just some questions about him, some pretty significant questions about him, about his character, about his personality. We saw him at his pro day. He was not prepared physically, and teams are going to have to really be careful with him. Who is he really? What kind of player is he going to be? They're going to have to do a lot of due diligence. But when you look at the tape, it's like, forget everything else. This guy is a wrecking machine. And, certainly Georgia's turned out a few of those in recent years. The Eagles have a couple. They're hoping turn into wrecking machines next year. But he could be the best player in the draft. And it's a risky pick a little bit just because there's so many unknowns about him. So if you're comfortable with who he is as a person, his character, and his conditioning, is he going to be a guy who's not in shape? Then you're going to have to ask yourself, is this the right way to go? But I think the Seahawks here they're going to look at his tape and say he's the guy.
Nothing wrong with dabbling in the SEC when you need a big-time defensive player, particularly that Georgia team. So definitely high on a lot of teams' lists. Let's go back to you, Barrett, with the Lions pick at number 6. What are you thinking there?
Well, you got Dan Campbell. He wants to bite your kneecaps off, and he wants players to do the same thing. So I think he sticks with the Big Ten this year also and goes out and get another rush in opposite of Aiden Hutchinson, and he goes out and get Lucas Van Ness. 6'5", 272, high motor guy. Even though he didn't start, he was a pass rushing specialist, and he has the ability to play inside and outside because he got a little size to him at 272. He's, very skilled at getting off the ball, and, he plays long and, how he plays that defensive end position. And now they're thinking they're building that defense up. So now he has one guy in Aiden Hutchinson on one side and Lucas Van Ness on the other side, and they can generate some pressure on quarterbacks in that division. So I think they go in that direction. I think that's a pretty good pick for them. I think he's good enough at this point and refined enough as a pass rusher to really make a difference in that defense.
All right, let's move on to pick number 7. And Ray, they're not the LA Raiders or the Oakland Raiders. They are the Las Vegas Raiders. Of course, you've seen all iterations of that organization. What do you think they do here with the 7th pick?
Well, they really have to improve defensively. They really have to improve their secondary. The secondary needs immense help. And here they've got an opportunity to go, and they have their pick of all the defensive backs in this draft. And there are some very good ones, not so much at the safety position, but you got a lot of good corners. And it's really a case, I'm almost certain they're going to go corner here. It's a question of who do they like the best. And from what I'm hearing, they really like Devon Witherspoon from Illinois. And I can understand why. He's just a shade under 6 feet tall, which is maybe a little too short for some people's taste. But he's a solid 180 pounds. Physical, not afraid to come up and force the run. He'll tackle, but just a real sticky cover guy. I mean, he's right on the receiver all the time, and very competitive, which you have to be to play cornerback in the NFL. I mean, he'll give up a play here and there, but he never backs down. And you saw him on an Illinois team that was, playing in the Big Ten against some big-time receivers. He drew the tough guy every week and was up to the task. So. I think the Raiders are going defense here, and I think they're going with Devon Witherspoon.
All right, let's move on to pick number 8. The Falcons are on the clock, Dave, and we saw them just complete a trade. What do you think they do here with number 8, and does that trade affect that at all?
Maybe a little bit. Maybe they stay away from corner, but I think this pick is already tailor-made for them anyway. I had them going Tyree Wilson, edge player from Texas Tech. The Falcons were second to last in the NFL in sacks last year, 21 in 17 games. They desperately need to get after the quarterback, and this is a really good way to do it. Wilson, one of the best defensive players in this class, has some freakish traits, among them an 84-inch wingspan. So getting him into the building, getting him the chance to get after the quarterback, it means everything. It means everything to that team. They really need it. And getting him at 8 is really good value, too. This is also the time where if Tyree Wilson's available and the Eagles haven't called yet, it may be time to make that phone call because he's a really good player and he's good value at number 8.
Yeah, Eagles 2 picks away at number 10. We will get all of our insiders' thoughts on what pick is made for the Eagles at 10. The Bears are on the clock now at number 9, Rube, and it's funny. There's been no offensive lineman taken. We're almost 10 picks into the draft, but you think this might be the moment for one?
Yeah, and I know Ray wanted to pick Peter Skoronski. You know, Peter Skoronski's grandfather played for the Packers back in the Bart Starr, Vince Lombardi era. So that's in Ray's wheelhouse. So I'm sure he was kind of hoping to take him, but I don't know if he's going to win 5 championships like his dad Bob did, but he's a really, really good player. He's versatile. He can play guard. I mean, he's going to be a tackle in the league, 6'4", 320, but he could give you reps at guard if you need him. Probably the best O-lineman in the draft. Really consistent, smart, physical. He's got all the tools, and I think for the Bears, it makes a lot of sense there at number 9.
On the clock at number 10, your Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm going to assume most of our insiders are going to think the Eagles are going to trade up or down here from 10. But, Barrett, if they do select at 10, what do you think they do here?
I think they go with probably the best athlete out of the bunch as far as edge rushers in this draft. And I have to go with Nolan Smith. He has all the intangibles of being a really, really, really good pass rusher, and what gets me is you look at his size, it's 6'2", 238, 240 pounds. You look at, his counterparts going to be on the other side of him rushing the passer. I mean, he's going to be a fast guy, being able to go out there and rush the passer. And Hassan Reddick is kind of the same build, but he's fast. Hassan ran a 4.5 in college. This guy, and he's an inch taller than Hassan Reddick, Nolan Smith is, and weighs the same as he weighs, but ran a 4.3 40. He's strong enough to set the edge on run plays. So running, you're not going to be able to run the ball on him, just like they weren't able to run the ball on Hassan Reddick. It'll give them an opportunity to have 2 speed demons coming out there. I mean, you wouldn't even call that a NASCAR package. You would have to call that F1 racing package because you have those two guys coming off the corners, rushing the passer. This would be great for, them to go in and have a dominant pass rushing defense from the outside with those two. So Nolan Smith is my guy going into it if they stay at number 10.
I'll open it up to the rest of the panel, and I'll start it off with this. Does the torn pec muscle give you any pause here for selecting Smith at this point? What are you thinking, Rube?
Well, obviously, you're going to do your due diligence and make sure he's, doesn't have any long-term, stuff. But I think as long as he projects that he's going to be okay long-term, no. I mean, these injuries these guys have, and certainly a pec is a serious one. But by year 2, nobody's thinking that way. I'm just thinking, Barrett, of a nickname for those, for that edge rush, and you might want to call it like the funny car. I mean, who's the Don Garlitz, the Don Garlitz rush? Because you're right, NASCAR is too slow, and Formula One maybe, but the fastest cars are those funny cars, right? So
right,
the Don Garlitz, that was his name, Don Garlitz.
Don Garland, yes, Garland, yes.
Look, I think anytime you can add pass rush, Howie's going to do it. So it certainly makes a lot of sense.
Have to move the training camp to ADCO. Drag strip. That would be a lot of speed on the edges. It would be. My only concern, Barrett, and I'll ask you, is his size. I mean, it's 6'2", 238, and he'll probably get a little bit bigger when he comes to the NFL. But do you think he can be an every down player, or do you see him as a situation pass rush specialist? And if that's what he is, do you worry about taking him that high in the draft?
No, I mean, to be honest, you look at Hassan Reddick, he showed that you can go out there, and they have a blueprint on how they can go out there and stop the run with a smaller guy, Hassan Reddick. I mean, he got up the field, forced run plays in, he got penetration, and I think that's kind of the same thing they're going to ask from a guy like Nolan Smith. I mean, he played against some of the best offensive tackles in the league in the SEC and was able to stymie at the line of scrimmage, press them back, get that penetration, because penetration kills all run plays, and make a play. So I think Nolan Smith, he can hold up with these big tackles because he showed he can do it against the best offensive linemen in the country in the SSC at the college level.
DZ, we haven't heard from you. What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I think it'd be a fine use of the pick at number 10. I think this kind of shows, though, that the trade up and trade down scenarios should be in play, because if you trade up,
Absolutely.
we see Tyree Wilson in that range, the 7-8 range, that would be worth moving up. But there are some players here that I would kind of put in a similar category, whether it's Nolan Smith. I really like Miles Murphy from Clemson. I think there's certainly a higher floor with him. You still have your choice of the other cornerbacks. There are a lot of tackles. So if there's a team willing to move up, maybe they're trying to get after a tackle in the draft. There's only been one offensive lineman go so far. If there's a team that wants to move up, I think the Eagles will have to field those calls, because I think you might be in a situation here where there's a few players that kind of grade out similarly. If I stayed here at 10, I'd probably go with Miles Murphy over Nolan Smith, but I understand the intrigue with Smith. He's a fun player to watch.
Final thoughts on this 10th pick before we move on?
Yeah, the only thing I would throw in here is Rube said it a moment ago when he was talking about Skoronski. I agree with Reuben. I see him going to Chicago, and everything I'm hearing suggests that's where he's going to go. Went to, he's from Northwestern, so he played right in their backyard. I mean, Skoronski, can you imagine a better Chicago Bear name than Skoronski? I mean, it seems like a fit. Plus, they need offensive linemen, and he is that good. But if somehow he was still on the board at 10, and I were the Eagles, even though I know they're going to have opportunities to trade out of there for sure, I would probably take Skoronski if I had a shot at him.
Would you trade up to get Skoronski, Rube?
Want to trade up to get him? Well, I mean, it depends how it's falling. I maybe a spot or two if you really like him that much, but I think it's more likely, probably a lot more likely, that if Howie trades up from 10, it's going to be for one of those edge rushers. It's going to be for a defensive lineman.
Do you agree, Ray?
Yeah, I do. And I think it's more likely, listen, with Howie, Howie's open for business 24/7. We know that. And there's going to be opportunities probably to do both, move up and move down. If you ask me, I think he's more likely to probably move down because I know he's not happy with just 6 draft picks and having to sit out rounds 4, 5, and 6. I mean, he would like to really replenish in there. And he would have the opportunity to do that if he traded down from 10. And I do think that 10 is going to be a very hot spot for teams wanting to trade up, because if the draft goes the way we're talking about, and I think it will, that 3 of the quarterbacks are off. Will Levis is now the last of the blue chip quarterbacks that's on the board, and you got half a dozen teams right behind you that are looking to draft a quarterback. And you got Tennessee sitting at 11, and from everything I've heard, Tennessee wants Will Levis, and they're going to take him at 11. So if you're Washington, if you're Tampa, if you're Minnesota, and you're thinking quarterback, you're thinking about trading up to 10 to get ahead of Tennessee. So I think that opportunity is there. So if Howie's going to move out of 10, I think he's more likely to trade down than trade up.
All right, Ray, grab a sip of water because you were on the clock now with the Tennessee Titans, the 11th overall selection right after the Eagles. And where do you think they go here?
I think they could go Levis, but they also need a receiver, and I'm going to take Jordan Addison here from Southern Cal. I mean, there are a lot of really good receivers outside. There are a lot of good receivers top to bottom in this draft. I mean, this might be the best tight end group that I've seen in a very long time, and you've got some really good wide receivers too. But Addison is just, to me, the best pattern runner of the group. He's got very good hands. He's slippery in the open field. He seems like he's in the mold of the modern NFL receiver. Doesn't have super size, but he has a lot of the same traits of a Devontae Smith. I think they could go either way. They could go Levis here, but I'm going to give him the receiver, and I'm going to say Addison.
Number 12 is the Texans. Once again, where you think they go with the 12th pick, DZ?
Well, they got their quarterback at the number 2 pick, so it's time to pair him with the receiver. And I think Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State makes a lot of sense. It's really funny in this draft. Ray just took Jordan Addison. I'm taking Smith and Jigba, who are both not only slot receivers, but kind of fit best as a slot. And we saw a few years ago when the Eagles drafted traits over the player, they ended up with Jalen Reagor instead of Justin Jefferson. So I think maybe that's become a thing of the past, worrying about a guy being a slot-only player. And there's a lot to like about Smith and Jigba. I mean, you think back to like Jalen Carter watching that Georgia line last year in the draft and thinking, the best one's yet to come. That's the way I felt with Smith and Jigba last year watching Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. I still think he's a really good player. And pairing him with Bryce makes a lot of sense. Now, there's a chance CJ Stroud goes number 2, and this is a chance to put the teammates together in Texas, and that's not a bad idea either.
Rube, what do you think happens with the next pick at 13?
Well, I think Joe Douglas likes taking offensive linemen, and they keep trying. Mekhi Becton, Elijah Vera Tucker. This would be 3 offensive tackles in the first round in 4 years, but I think that's what the Jets need to do. And I've got him taking Paris Johnson Jr., Ohio State, another Ohio State. Got a little run on Ohio State here. And he's a guy who, I mean, he's huge. He's, 6'6", 320, 325. Got all the tools in the world to be a big-time player. And now he needs some work on his technique. There's no doubt about it. He's not a polished player at this point in his career, but I think the physical traits he has, the ability, the ceiling's unlimited, and I think those are characteristics that will appeal to Joe Douglas. Joe Douglas comes from from the Ozzie Newsome and from the Howie Roseman trees, and he wants offensive linemen, and they need an offensive tackle or 2 up there. So that's the pick for the Jets.
Number 14 overall selection belongs to the Patriots. Barrett, what happens there?
I really think they need to go in and bring some protection in to the young quarterback, Mac Jones. He got to beat up a little bit. So why not go with an offensive line? Probably the number 3 offensive lineman in the draft, a really good athlete in Darnell Wright, offensive tackle out of Tennessee, has all the measurables, 6'5", 330, 333, can run, really, really good pass blocking ability, good technique, hard-nosed kid. So he had to protect a lot, with that throwing offense they had in Tennessee. So that's my next pick. I will go Darnell Wright to try to shore up, and he played inside and outside. And we know that they like versatility in New England. So I think they go with, this guy, Darnell Wright. This is a good pick for them for the versatile offensive lineman he has.
Ray, the Aaron Rodgers saga still has not culminated. They pick 15th here in the draft. What do you think they do with that selection?
They got some work to do, and a lot of it on defense. And right up front on the defensive line, pretty average group. I mean, last year they were 26th in the league stopping the run, and I think that's what they're going to address here. Dave Zangaro just a moment or so ago mentioned Miles Murphy, who's a very good player from Clemson, 6'5", 270-pound. Defensive lineman with a lot of versatility. I mean, he's listed as an edge player, but you can do a lot of different things with him. And I just love the way he plays. I mean, you watch him on tape and he plays hard every snap. And I think he's a guy that's going to come into the NFL and have an impact right away. And Green Bay needs that on their defense. So I think if they have an opportunity at this point in the draft to take a player like Miles Murphy, I think they jump at it.
Let's dibble-dabble in the NFC East as the Commanders are on the clock with the 16th overall selection. And Dave, a guy some mock drafts have going to the Eagles. Is your pick here?
Yeah, it is. It was scary. I had to get in the mindset of the Commanders and really think about what they were going to do because we still have the quarterback out there.
They've tried to fire himself.
And that would make a lot of sense until you realize it's the Commanders doing it. They're not ready to get a quarterback. They have an immediate need at cornerback, and it does fall to them that Christian Gonzalez is still available here. I mean, this is pretty late for a guy who might be the best cornerback in this draft, 6'1", almost 200 pounds, really fluid. The one thing he had to prove after playing in Colorado was that he had ball skills. He goes to Oregon, has 4 picks last year. This would be a really good pick, a good value pick for the Commanders too. I like Gonzalez more than Devin Witherspoon. I know that the opinions are split on that. I've seen enough from Gonzalez to like the physicality, the athleticism. This would be a home run pick for the Commanders at 16, which is probably why they won't make it.
Rube, the Steelers on the clock with the 17th pick. An argument can be made here for this selection. What do you think they do here, and why is this the pick?
Yeah, and I think the middle of the first round is going to be a really fertile ground for cornerbacks here. Once you get to the middle of this round, I thought Joey Porter Jr. made sense for the Steelers, even without the obvious connection of his dad being a multiple Pro Bowler linebacker for Pittsburgh. Joey grew up there. He was a kid. He was like 15 years old. He was catching patterns from or running patterns against Antonio Brown as a youngster, when he went over to see his dad practice. So it makes a lot of sense. He's comfortable there. He's got a relationship with the coach and the franchise. But beyond that, and how many times are we seeing these cornerbacks coming up who are sons of NFL players, whether it's Asante Samuel, Joe Horn's kid. I mean, there's just a bunch of them. Lately it's kind of interesting. These guys are really NFL ready. But the one thing about Joey Porter Jr., he didn't have the production. He's got all the skills. He's a smart player. He's a tough physical player. He had 1 interception in his college career in 30 games. And you kind of look at that where teams thrown away from him, maybe a little bit. But that's a concern. But when you look at his ability, his toughness, just all the traits, his size that you're looking for in a cornerback, he's got it all. So you kind of have to weigh that. Is the lack of production as far as interceptions a huge concern, or do you look at him and say he's going to get his opportunities on the next level, and he's got to take advantage? So he's an intriguing guy. He's certainly a guy that, like, you would love to see a guy like that come to Philadelphia and play for the Eagles. I wouldn't put it past Howie to get out of 10 and get down into that middle of the first round where there's going to be some good value at cornerback. But I've got him going to the Steelers here at number 17, Penn State cornerback Joey Porter Jr.
For some reason, I don't know who made this list and who picked when, but Barrett is picking for the Lions again, organization he has some experience with. Barrett, again, the Lions are on the clock. What are you thinking here?
I think they're going to go with another defensive lineman, a bigger guy, talking about a guy that just can go out there and try to muscle guys. And that's what I see in Brian Brzee. Really, really good. I mean, he went through a lot of adversity during his college career. He lost his sister, and injuries, but he got back healthy, played at a high level, 6'5", 300-pound defensive lineman, has the versatility to generate pass rush in the middle and collapse the pocket, versatile enough to, go out and do stunts, and put pressure on the quarterback and jump gaps and stop the run. So he'd be a great player for Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator, to really implement that front line. Now you have, 2 guys that can bring it from the outside and then bring Brzee in and really be that interior defensive lineman that could generate pressure from the inside. That'll be a perfect pick for Dan Campbell and this defense.
At number 19 on the clock is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Ray, what are your thoughts there with their selection?
The Buccaneers are beginning the post-Brady years now, and there's a little bit of a rebuild mentality down there. And it really starts on the offensive line, which needs a lot of work. And I think they're probably delighted to be sitting here looking at the board and seeing Broderick Jones still on the board. I had him going a little earlier than this. I mean, he's a good big man, 6'4.5", 310 pounds, but actually ran a sub 5.0 40 and can really move it. And he's really kind of in the mold of a lot of today's what teams are looking for in offensive linemen that are big, can move, can pull, can block on the second level. He can do all that stuff. and is a guy that can come in and take down one of those tackle positions and hold it for a good long time. So I think this is a pretty easy call. If Broderick Jones is on the board right now, I would think that Tampa Bay Buccaneers would grab him real quick.
Let's go to Seattle, where the Seahawks have the 20th selection. Mr. Zangaro, what are you thinking?
I'm stopping the slide, Danny. Will Levis time.
Okay.
And, I know that the Seahawks just signed Geno Smith to that 3-year deal, $75 million deal. But then I thought about it, and Geno Smith can't be the reason you don't draft another quarterback. And Levis, it's amazing to think that he could be the guy to drop. I don't think ultimately he will drop this far, but there's a lot to like about Levis. And certainly going to a team where you have a quarterback in place, because Levis has all these tools. If he can maybe redshirt him for a year, I think that would be ideal in a lot of ways. And I don't think the Seahawks cannot draft Will Levis because they have Geno Smith. That would be a little too short-sighted.
All right, let's move on to the 21st pick. It's the Chargers, Rube. What do you think that the LA team does there?
I still think they're in San Diego, but I'm a little slow on these things. I'm going wide receiver. Get Justin Herbert, another weapon. Quentin Johnston, TCU wide receiver. I don't know. I'm not sure how that sounds, but he's an interesting guy. He's got great size at 6'4". You look at the combine. He had an incredible combine. He didn't run, and he goes to his pro day and ran a little slow, about a 4.48. Which, for NFL wide receivers, that's a little bit slower than you'd like. But, he's got that great size. The one question about him is, it was 1 year of really, really good production in college. Thought it was a really good year. He's a guy who stretches the field. He plays probably a little faster than he runs. Averaged 19 yards a catch over his 3-year career, and was just under 18 this year. So a guy that stretches the field, makes big plays, gets in the end zone. Another weapon for the Chargers, and maybe not one of the elite wide receiver prospects in this draft, but a really good one.
Let's go to Charm City. Baltimore has the 22nd pick, and they signed Odell Beckham. They haven't signed Lamar Jackson, but Barrett, you think they go offense here?
I do, because, they want to get him as many weapons as they can. That's been a problem that Lamar's been talking about. They haven't brought guys in to really help him on the offensive side of the ball, and I think they're going to stay to the roots of making sure they shore up that run game with a dynamic tight end. I see them run a lot of 12 personnel, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. They do have, of course, they have, Mark Andrews, one of the better tight ends in the league. But Isaiah Likely, he's pretty good. But I think the guy that they're going to go out there and get is Michael Mayer, Notre Dame tight end. 6'4.5", 250, has elite, as far as pass catching ability, can block at the line of scrimmage. He'll be a great pick for them because it falls in line on what they want to do. They want to run the ball, but have the pass there run with their run formations, with their heavy tight end formations, and push the ball down the field. And you can do it with those type of tight ends. So I think that'll be a great pick for them. And when Lamar does come back, because he's going to come back, whether he wants to or not, he's going to come back. But he'll be there with Odell being there. That, tight end trio with Odell Beckham can really highlight them in the passing game with run formations.
Ray, you're on the clock with the 23rd pick as the Vikings are selecting, and a real dynamic athlete you think will come off the board there.
Yeah, I think you're getting to the point in this first round of the draft where teams are looking at the board, and I know what the conventional wisdom is about drafting running backs in the first round. But at a certain point, you just got to look at the quality of the athlete and say, "No, we got to take this guy." At this pick, 23rd, you got a shot at Bijan Robinson, and I think that most people I've talked to, and I'm in agreement with them, if you just rated all of the players in this draft on their overall athletic ability, just rated them regardless of position, but who's the best athlete? He's top 5 for everybody. And here you got a shot out of a 23. And I know people will say, well, they got Dalvin Cook. Well, why would they do this? Well, Dalvin Cook right now is coming to the end of his rookie contract. He's on the, and he signed a new contract, but he's looking at a major cap hit. He is a major cap hit for the Vikings this year and next. And there's some talk that the Vikings have quietly begun shopping him around. If anybody wants to make a deal, they can do it. because I don't think they want to sign him to an extension. So the possibility of going out and getting a rookie running back of this caliber on a rookie contract, I think might appeal to the Vikings. And also just the fact that this is such a good player and you got a shot at him at 23, I can't walk away from him. I think he's too good. I think he's a guy that's going to come into the NFL and be an impact player like right away. And I think if you're looking for a comparison, I think he's very much like Adrian James. Similar size, same kind of explosive running ability, equally good catching the ball out of the backfield. I think he's a dynamic player. And in the right offense, I think he can be a guy that can be a star. So, yeah, I got Minnesota taking Bijan Robinson from Texas at 23.
Doug Peterson's Jaguars are on the clock with the 24th pick, your penultimate pick of this mock draft. What do you think they do there, Dave?
Yeah, this is what I got after Barrett for yesterday. So I wanted Mayer here for the Jags, and he snatched him from me. So I'm going with Brian Branch, the defensive back from Alabama, who listed as a safety, can play a nickel cornerback as well. He played that a lot at Alabama. This makes sense. He's a plug-and-play guy for the Jaguars, and he reminds you a lot of Jimmy Ward, the former 49er, or the 49er, I should say, and who picked him way back when. It was Trent Baalke, the GM in Jacksonville. A lot of similarities there. I think he's a similar player with that versatility and a really good one. So the first safety off the board at 24.
The 25th pick has us back in the NFC East. The Giants are on the clock, Rube. What are their needs, and what do you think they do here?
Yeah, I got the Giants going cornerback, and Deonte Banks from Maryland is a guy who he's really kind of if you did a mock draft a month ago, I don't think he would have been anyone's pick, but he's had a good pre-draft stretch here. Good size. He's a really tough physical player, all-around type of guy. Loves to support the run. He's a really good tackler for a corner. Good size. Runs, a 4.35. You get the Giants a playmaker in the secondary. You're tempted to get the Giants are really bad players. He's like, let's just say they're the Giants. But I think he could be a sleeper. There's a lot of good cornerbacks in this draft. And you never know. It'll take a couple of years, but I wouldn't be surprised if when all is said and done, Deonte Banks is one of the better guys in this draft.
There's a difference between first and second round money for sure. At 26, we're staying in the division. And Barrett, what do you think the Cowboys do here?
Well, they lost their primary tight end and Dalton Schultz, and I think they trade a Dalton for another Dalton, and that's Dalton Kincaid, Utah tight end, really, really good tight end. And I said elite, level pass catching ability and run after the catch before with Mayer. Same thing you have with Kincaid. He's a force as far as being his pass catching ability, real tough, hard-nosed kid. He could be a definite weapon for the Cowboys in their offense. So, we'll be playing him twice a year, and he's definitely somebody they're going to make sure they account for where he is on the field.
At 27, a Vogue Super Bowl pick for sure. The Buffalo Bills are on the clock. Ray, how do they improve?
I think they're going to add another weapon for Josh Allen. Zay Flowers is probably a little small for some people's taste. He's 5'9", measures at 5'9", 182 pounds. But he's so fast. And anybody that saw him play at BC, teams did everything they could to try and stop him, and he was still got open all the time. And he catches the ball beautifully, and he makes big plays. Once he got the ball, he makes people miss in the open field. Some people stereotype him as he's just a slot receiver. I think he brings more versatility than that. He can run a lot of jet sweep type of stuff. You can use him a lot of different ways in your offense if you have a creative offensive staff. And I think he's a guy who's, even though there's some questions about his size, and I understand 5'9" is small by NFL standards, but he's a playmaker. And I think he would come in, and I think Josh Allen would be very, very happy to see him in the huddle with him this season.
This friendly face is on the clock with our next pick. Glasses or not, he's always in the know. Mr. Zangaro, what do you think happens here?
I got so confused there for a second. I was like, how am I in that window now and not over here? This was another time.
It's rough enough having one day.
And I'm not moving in that one.
You have to deal with them all the time. The Bengals, what do you think they do here, Dave?
Yeah, this was another time where I thought yeah, I'm gonna draft Dalton Kincaid, and then Barrett swoops in a couple picks before me and takes my guy. But that's fine for the Bengals because they sit back and get Kalijah Kancey from
Great football
Pittsburgh.
name.
Now it's a tough deal to be compared to Aaron Donald as much as he has been in this pre-draft process, but it's understandable why. Both from Pitt, both undersized interior defensive linemen, a lot of bursts. And he's not Aaron Donald. He'll probably never be Aaron Donald. That's such a high bar, but he has the ability to penetrate. And you put him on that line with DJ Hill and Trey Hendrickson and DJ Reed, or all of a sudden they can really get after the quarterback. I think that'd be a solid pick for them.
All right, let's move on to the Saints. I want to spend some time talking about the Eagles pick at 30. So at 29, Rube, what do you think the Saints do?
Yeah, nobody wants to hear my pick because everyone's like, let's get to 30. Let's find out what the Eagles are going to do. I did go with Mozzie Smith, a D tackle from Michigan, at 29 for the Saints. He's quite a physical specimen. He's probably close to 350.
Big dude.
He's a huge dude, but he's really athletic. Surprising athleticism at 6'3", 345, 350. We'll call it 350. You can move around, and you're not going to find a 100% can't miss guy at the end of the first round. But what he has as far as physical traits, athleticism, and the film is look, he's got some things he's got to work on technique wise, consistency wise, probably fitness wise, but he's an intriguing prospect, and that's what you're looking for here at the bottom of the first round. Mozzie Smith, D tackle, Michigan.
Barrett on the clock at 30, picking for another one of his teams. And Barrett, what do the Eagles do here?
You know what? I mean, I already got some slack on this from David. And when they all laughed at me when I said I was going to pick this guy, but, they finally get a linebacker in the first round. Sean Desai breaks the mold and goes out and gets his guy in the middle of that defense to be a player. And that's Drew Sanders, Arkansas linebacker, formerly a guy that played at Alabama, left Alabama because he wasn't getting enough burns. He goes there at 6'4", 235 pounds. Runs like a deer, can play the interior linebacker, can play right there at the mic or play the wheel. More than likely he'll play at the wheel, even at that size. But he's able to be a pass rusher, had 9.5 sacks last year, 3 forced fumbles, an interception, a great playmaker. He's a guy that you can go in and not worry about that inside linebacker position for a while. So, yes, I think, with Dean on one side and Sanders on the other side, this is a match made in heaven. Eagles step out the box and go out there and get a boss linebacker in the middle of that defense. Yes, I said it. I know I'm going to hear it.
I see Dave's
all
face.
The Eagles faithful. All 4 of them. I mean, all 3 of you guys are just going to, just tar and feather me. I don't care. But this is the direction they need to go.
When you're talking about picking at 30, I think a lot of those rules go out the window.
Right.
It's not like you're taking a linebacker at 10. So I would not be surprised. And Howie's talked about, we're going to zig when everyone else is zagging. I don't think it's that outrageous to think they would take a linebacker. We're all kind of thinking, Jerry Robinson, 1979. It's been a long time. But I don't think it's necessarily that they won't do it. I think at 30, those rules go out the window. Whether it's taking Bijan late in the first round, if he's there, I think he's going to take the best player. And when you look at Drew Sanders, and you look at where you're picking, it certainly makes a lot of sense. I don't think it's that off the wall to suggest it.
Yes, I want to hear from Dave Zangaro. Get his camera up here. We want to hear from Dave. Dave, why are you giving Barrett flack about this?
Look, I agree with Rube that it's much different picking at 30 than 10, but I also think there are some positions they kind of punt on, and this is one of them. Right or wrong, this is a position they don't seem to value that much. There have been a few exceptions over the years, paying Nigel Bradham, drafting Michael Kendricks and Jordan Hicks, but even those weren't first rounders. So I think it's unlikely. This was a great chance for them to trade back if someone is calling that phone and they want, say a team wants Hendon Hooker and they want their quarterback, then this is where you would listen, because I think there's another group of players here that might be similarly rated, whether it's Cam Smith, the corner from South Carolina, who I like a lot. But let me give you a name. Eddie Tamiwa Adebare from Northwestern would make a lot of sense, especially if you have Nolan Smith, the undersized edge rusher. Now you have a big edge rusher or an undersized interior lineman who can kind of play up and down the line, it would not shock me to see them go 2 for 2 with linemen in the first round.
And don't forget, Michael Kendricks was, I believe, the 46th pick in the 2012 draft. So you're talking about a difference of 16 picks. So philosophically, I really don't think it's that much of a leap at 30.
Yeah, 16 picks in a decade ago.
I get that, but I don't think, where they pick at the end of this round, I don't think it's going to preclude Howie from – look, I don't think he's going to take a linebacker, but I don't think it's that outrageous. I think it's possible.
My feeling is if they haven't traded at 10, they will almost certainly trade at 30. I can't see Howie having 2 first-round picks and just sitting there and just taking 2 players and moving on. If they decide that they like what they see at 10 and they're going to just take a player there, then I think they really, really aggressively shop around at 30 to try and there will be teams that will be trying to trade in at this point, and you can trade them and get some additional draft picks maybe for later in this draft and the next year's draft. Because remember, the Eagles don't have a pick now in rounds 4, 5, and 6, and it's not like Howie to sit there from pick 90 to pick 290 and not have anything to do. So if he hasn't made the trade at 10, then I think he's going to make the trade at 30 to try and get those additional picks. But I will say this about Barrett's pick. Sanders is, I think, by most people's reckoning, the best linebacker in this draft. So if you're looking linebacker, he's probably your guy. And I don't think it would be a bad pick either if that were the case. I'd just be very surprised if they did it.
It would be an honor for the Eagles to pick last in the draft. Unfortunately, they were the Super Bowl runner-ups, and that honor goes to the Chiefs. The 31st selection is Andy Reid's team. Where do you have them? Who do you have them selecting, Ray, and why?
Well, you can never have enough pass rushers. I mean, that's for sure. And this was a very deep draft for those guys. And I think that Will McDonald from Iowa State is a guy that I thought would probably go a little earlier than this. And I think that Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo would be very happy if they came up and they saw him still on the board. You watch him on tape, he's got really long arms, and he's just got blockers just never get into his body. He always fends people off. He's strong. He's fast off the ball. He's got to develop a little bit more against the run, but he certainly knows how to go hunt down quarterbacks. So if Will McDonald, the 4th, is still on the board here, I think that's a pick that Andy Reid would make in a heartbeat.
That is the first round. I want to take 30 seconds for each of you to chime in on how the draft went or some thoughts. 30 seconds. You're on the clock, Dave Zangaro.
Yeah, I think there are some players here that went later than we'd probably see in real life. Will Levis comes to mind. Christian Gonzalez comes to mind. But I want to hit home on what we've said so much about the Eagles. They're going to trade. They're going to move around the board. They're not going to stick at 10 and 30. We do all this. It's a lot of fun. And then draft day comes and Howie is not going to be where we see them right now. And I think that's going to be the case again this year.
Your Eagle Eye podcast co-host, Mr. Reuben Frank. What do you think?
Yes, there's some really intriguing guys in this draft. I think to me, Jalen Carter is. I'm just really curious because he could drop. We've seen these guys when there's questions about a guy, they just start slipping through the first round, and everyone's kind of asking each other, what's going on here? Should we take him? I certainly don't think he would get past 10. I know that. But, a guy like him, Robinson, these are the intriguing guys in this draft for me because, and I would even throw Brian Branch in there as well because, you don't get a lot of safeties, and he's a kind of a combo guy. We don't get a lot of safeties in the first round. So curious to see where those guys in particularly go, and whether they go as high as we all have them here.
Ray, what impressions did the first round make on you?
Well, one of them involves one of the guys that I took, and that's Bijan. I just think that he's a very unique kind of player, and I know that there's reason for it. The teams say we don't pick running backs in the first round. We just don't. You can always get the Shady McCoys, the Brian Westbrooks, Miles Sanders, Deuce Staley. I mean, those guys, those running backs, you can get them rounds 2, 3, 4. Kenny Gainwell. But every so often, a guy comes along whose skill set is such that you just say, man, this guy, special player right here. And sometimes the old conventional wisdom goes out the window, and you just say, if we plug this guy into our offense, he's going to make us better like that. And I think Bijan Robinson is that kind of player. Right now, everybody in the first round, nobody in the first round is talking about taking him because they're all looking in other areas. But that's what I want to see is Thursday night. Who's going to make the move for him? Who's in what draft room is somebody finally going to say, you know what? Yeah, I know none of us were talking about taking a running back, but this guy's there. He's too good to pass up. Let's go get him. Because I think whoever that team is, you're going to see a guy that I think right now is going to be the early in the clubhouse leader for Rookie of the Year.
And, one quick thing about Bijan, he averaged almost 17 yards a catch. So you really have to look at him differently than most running backs. He's such a weapon. He's not just a runner. I mean, he can do a lot of things to help your team.
Barrett, final thoughts on these 31 picks?
I thought those, this draft was a little different than I'm used to being around. I saw some players, 1 through 10 that, are just, game changers. But after that, I thought it was, kind of an okay draft after that. So you're going to get the most bang for your buck in those first 10 picks. And the Eagles just happen to be, even in the Super Bowl, one of those first 10 picks. So I think they can get a really good player out of the first 10. But then after that, I do see them trading out of the first with number 30 because they do need somewhere from that, 4th, 5th, and 6th pick. So I see them moving around and kind of vacating that 30th pick. But I do think they're going to get a lot of bang for the buck at the number 10 pick.
It has been a lot of fun. Be sure to check out Reuben Frank and Dave Zangaro's work on NBCSportsPhiladelphia.com leading up to the April 27th, during and after the draft. And be sure to check out all of our entertainment on NBC Sports Philadelphia as well as NBC Sports Plus. We will be here with you every step of the way. I'm Danny Pommells for Reuben Frank, Dave Zangaro, Ray Didinger, and Barrett Brooks. This has been On the Clock, the Eagles' first round mock draft. See you next time.